I was once on a discussion panel, and somebody from the crowd asked me, or asked everyone on the panel, if we could, what book would we add to the canon of Scripture? And I named three. The Razor's Edge by W. Somerset Maugham, The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, and The Stand by Stephen King. All three of those books tell a story about a vocation and an unlikely hero. The Stand by Stephen King is the story of Armageddon, the final battle between good and evil. In the book, Armageddon is brought about by a manufactured virus, biological warfare, a virus that was manufactured in a base in Texas and escaped by one man. One man left, having been in contact with it, and it was 100% communicable and 99% fatal. So it took no time at all for that one person who left the base to spread it until it was global. And 99% of the population is dead. In the United States, that left about 3 million people. And those 3 million people who were unaffected by the virus were visited in their dreams by two visions. One was a vision of a man with fiery eyes. Some found him terrifying, some found him alluring. And he was beckoning, "Come and join me in Las Vegas." The second image was the image of a 100-year-old black woman from Nebraska. And she was sitting on her rocking chair on her front porch, strumming an old guitar, and saying, "My name's Mother Abigail. Y'all come and see me." And about half the people went to Las Vegas. The other half went to Nebraska. What was interesting about that is that the characters weren't so clearly drawn out. You couldn't tell from the beginning of the book where they were going to go, because some people had good in them, and some people were more good than bad, some people were more bad than good, but there was always a mix. One of the people that ended up with Mother Abigail was a man named Nick, and Nick was a mute. And Mother Abigail was telling Nick, "God has some great plans for you, Nick." And Nick wrote on a pad of paper, "But Mother Abigail, I don't believe in God." And Mother Abigail threw her head back and laughed. And she put her old hand over his and she said, "Oh, honey, that don't matter none. God believes in you." All of the Gospels have a unique take on the passion of Jesus. Matthew and Mark both have Jesus calling out from the cross, my God, why have you abandoned me?" We heard it in the psalm, but not in the Gospel. Luke doesn't include that. Luke says, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing." It's a pointless question to ask which is true. What did he actually say? It doesn't matter. He may have said it all. What matters is, why did Mark and Matthew choose to record, my God, why have you abandoned me?" And why did Luke choose to record, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing"? Matthew and Mark were both writing to a Jewish, very, very Jewish community. A community that was very familiar with the Psalms. So they recognized when Jesus was on the cross calling out, my God, why have you abandoned me?" And that's even preserved in the original Aramaic. "Eli, Eli, lima sabachthani." They understood exactly what was happening. Jesus was not despairing. Jesus was calling out from the cross an ultimate victory, because it is a psalm that begins with, my God, why have you abandoned me? My God, why have you left me in pain? My God, why have you left me in shame? But it ends with the great proclamation that generations will sing of my glory. Generations will sing of my vindication. And it is a great proclamation that Jesus is giving to his people, saying, hang in, stay tuned, because this isn't over. God will still have the last word. Luke omits that, because Luke's audience was not Jewish. They were Greek, Gentile Christians. And they were not as familiar with the Psalms, and to them, Jesus' cry, my God, why have you abandoned me, would have sounded very much like a cry of despair. So in keeping with one of the themes of Luke's gospel, which is the universality of God's love, the universality of Christ's salvation, he says, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. Who is he talking about? It comes right after the two criminals on either side of him. Was he talking about the criminals? Or was he talking about Pilate, who washed his hands and unjustly sentenced him to death? Was he talking about Herod, who could have given him a release but just sent him back? Was he talking about the people who heralded him as king when he came into the city and then called for the release of Barabbas? Was he talking about his apostles who had the very first Eucharist, the very first experience of the body and blood of Christ, and then walked out and ran away in fear? Was he talking about Peter, who swore up and down, Lord, I will go to death with you, and then denied him 3 times? Was he talking about Judas, who was also there, who also received the Eucharist, who turned around and left that table and turned him in? Was he talking about the Roman soldiers who jeered him and mocked him? Was he talking about the ones who put the nails in his hands? Was he talking about the ones who whipped him? Was he talking about the people who had no respect, who spat on him? Yes. Yes. He was talking about all of them. Father, forgive them. In the Gospel of Luke, the crucifixion of Jesus and his last words is his great proclamation. I still believe in them. Yes, they did turn away from me, but I believe in them. Father, forgive them. Yes, they did deny me, but I still believe in Peter. Father, forgive him. Yes, they did hurt me and hit me and treat me unjustly, but I still have faith in them. Father, forgive them. The great proclamation of the cross in the Gospel of Luke is Jesus saying, I believe in you. I have hope in you. I trust in you. It is such a needed proclamation for us, because we are really no different than those people who were there on the day of his crucifixion. Because we still make bold proclamations about what we believe, and then when we are given an opportunity to allow it to shine in our lives, we turn and run away. We say that we believe in the power and the strength of God, but the minute that life gets a little bit frightening, we turn away. We say that we believe that Jesus is the true presence in the Eucharist, and we can come to this table and receive his body, receive his blood, and then turn around and in the parking lot curse at people. We are still all of those people whose faith is weak, whose faith is fleeting, whose faith is fickle. And so what the cross tells us is, it doesn't matter much. Honey, it just don't matter, because Jesus' faith in us is perfect. Jesus' faith in us is unwavering. And no matter how many times we may fall under the weight of our own cross, Jesus never stops believing us. Jesus never stops having trust in us. Jesus never stops saying, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing, but they are learning. They are learning how to be Christians every day more and more. And I believe in them. I believe that they will get there. And this is the great proclamation. If you are struggling with anything in your life, struggling with an addiction, struggling with a behavior that is problematic, struggling in a relationship, struggling anywhere in your life, Jesus says from the cross to you, I trust you. I believe in you. You can do this. And you may walk out of this church today and fall under the weight of that cross again, and he will still proclaim from that cross, Father, forgive them. They don't know, but they are learning. Father, forgive them because I still trust them. Father, forgive them because I believe in them. This is the great Holy Week. And our hearts and our minds are focused on the cross of Jesus. And as our hearts and our minds focus on the cross of Jesus, we need to open our ears to hear. So that when we feel weak, when we feel sinful, when we feel like we cannot move one more inch, when we feel like we will never, ever break this cycle, when we feel that nothing is ever going to change in our lives, when we feel like we have lost faith in ourselves, lost faith in the power of Jesus, we hear the voice of Jesus tell us, oh, honey, that don't matter none. I believe in you. You don't know what you're doing, but you are learning. I believe in you.